How's the Detroit Sports Podcast going?
This is the Detroit Sports Podcast Network.
Hey everybody, this is Freddie Cohen of ESPN Radio. When I'm not talking about breaking news or breaking news on ESPN Radio, I'm always a fan and listen to the Detroit Sports Podcast, and so should you.
I'm excited for episode 311 on the Detroit Sports Podcast. I am the Doc, John Macaroon joining me, my cousin Adam, the Jock Strozinski. What's up, cuz? What's happening?
This will probably be the last time I'm joining you in studio. Got that big move coming up, which is depressing and sad.
How do you feel about it?
I'm upset. Hate it.
Well, for those that don't know, Adam is becoming an Indiana resident. Now, does that mean the DocNJock podcast is going anywhere? Hell no. You know, nowadays, if Adam was even out of the country, we could still record a podcast.
Because we've done it.
And we've done it before. So the DocNJock podcast will continue, but similar to other podcasts that you hear, Adam will be remotely recording from his location, and I'll be here in the Sterling Heights studio, and we'll still put out great content every single week. Every single Thursday, it's going down. But sometimes maybe it'll be a little bit shorter of a show as we take vacations, as we do different things, because when football season ramps up with Michigan State, the Detroit Lions, we are going to go balls to the wall. So obviously in July and August, we slow down a little bit. But, you know, I did want to talk to you about, to open the podcast before we get into the crux of the show, talking about the Lions and the Michigan Wolverines. It's kind of a weird time going on in the summer because you start to peek around the news and you start to hear stories of people pooping in pools. There are people.
You were so excited about that story.
That was crazy shit because that's literally right next door to my house. So I was like, what the hell? So I went over there and took a picture. It wasn't me, obviously, because I will share the story in a minute.
Are you sure?
I'm reading about millions of people wanting to go to Vegas and Area 51 and look at aliens.
What kind of weirdos are these people? It's a military base. You're all going to get killed.
Then
You're stupid.
I fire up the computer today, and there's this family, I think, in Texas that's livid because they were upset. They went to go celebrate a family member that passed away, and there's this woman in the background who lifted up her shirt, and yeah, Google it. Family is livid that a woman took a topless photo of that, in the background to photobomb their kind of intimate photo there, and they're looking for.
Was the lady hot?
I think a little older too. I think maybe she might have been under the influence, but what they did was they had to post the picture everywhere and be like, who did this? And we're upset, we're livid. And I'm like, what's going on with people? There's so many weird things. And everybody in the last 7 days is infatuated with how they look when they're 50 years older than now. Everyone. I'm like, I don't care about FaceApp. Obviously, I did it, but
obviously,
yeah. Look, it's a sweet app, but everybody's doing weird ass shit, and I'm like, why is everybody wasting so much time these days? Everybody's like bored or high or drunk or what the hell are people into? But any of these stories catch your attention? Area 51 freaks me out because I'm like, seriously, everyone is gravitating toward the $22 million or so that was spent researching aliens and shit like that. But the military said, sure, come on out. But if you enter this area, you're getting shot.
Yeah.
You're getting blown up.
I find it fascinating that like 1 million people want to storm Area 51. Like, how good is this going to work out for you? Like, let's think about this, guys. It's a secure military base. If there are secrets in there, they don't want you to know. That's why they're secrets. They're going to shoot you, and they're going to shoot to kill. You're dumb. You are so dumb.
And here's the thing. The likelihood of them actually researching aliens isn't true. I mean, they're doing something, maybe chemical warfare. They're doing something subversive and high tech, maybe learning how to vaporize people with certain chemicals, but they're not researching aliens. Get the hell out of here.
By the way, I just seen the video for your photobomb with the naked lady.
What are people doing? Exactly. You're taking a photo. What are people doing? Seriously.
What are you doing? She's like sneaked in there off to the side.
Exactly.
The worst part is it's like it's from a news station, so like everything is blurred out, so I can't see anything.
Exactly. You'll find it later today, maybe uncensored. But people are weird. What are people into these days? I just think that with social media, with everyone potentially being high and drunk, we're doing some weird things as a people, and we're infatuated with a lot of different things. And some people are saying, well, it's not sports. I mean, in Detroit, you got to get on a boat, you got to play sports, you got to do something else other than watch sports. But I'm like, dude, there's still some storylines and there's still some things to talk about in the world of sports. There's still some productive things to do other than get into all this weird shit that people are getting into.
I will say this, as far as sports goes, this was probably one of the toughest weeks for me at work, trying to develop topics for us to talk about. To start the week, I had quite a few. And then come Tuesday, Wednesday, it's just like, oh my God, everything dried up, As you get your way closer to the weekend, you're just hoping something breaks, like there's something interesting. I mean, it was cool. We're going to talk about it. But Golden Tate comes out, on Sunday night and basically spills the beans on what he feels about Matt Stafford. We're going to break that down. But, I mean, thank God for that. Honestly, there's nothing going on right now as far as sports. So, yeah, you're going to talk about Area 51. You're going to talk about all these numbskulls who want to take over a military base. And you're going to talk about some broad photobombing a funeral picture because she's got nothing else going on and nothing to live for. What a waste of space that is. Mm-hmm. But, geez Louise, this is one of the toughest times of year if you're a sports fan. It is very, very difficult. It's brutal.
Well,
and
I agree to a certain extent regarding the games, regarding, passion storylines.
You're not talking about baseball because the Tigers suck. I watched most of that game the other night when they were in Cleveland and they got rocked. I think it was like 8 or 9-0. It was absolute dumpster fire. Not good. So you're not talking about the Tigers. There's not a whole lot going on right now as far as football is concerned.
Okay, well, I'll say this. There's a major championship going on in golf, which is very fascinating.
Yes.
You have Phil Mickelson stopping eating. You got Tiger Woods coming out saying that he hasn't been feeling the best since his Masters win. You had probably one of the greatest all-time 5 tennis matches in the world that took place on Sunday.
Okay, hold on, though. The two sports you just brought up, golf and tennis, those are super niche. Right?
Yeah, but a lot of people watched it.
More niche than hockey.
For sure.
So
very popular.
How does this move the needle? It doesn't. It really doesn't. There's a couple people who are really into it. Like, I'm really into golf. You're really into tennis. We're kind of outliers here. But all that being said, are we going to come on this podcast and talk about it? Are you going to go on are you going to go on a radio show and talk about those things?
I could definitely make it interesting talking about.
You want to talk about a dude pooping in a pool?
Hell yeah!
I mean, we can talk about that too. But are you going to go on a radio show and do that? No.
Potentially,
potentially, we're going to talk about that pool pooper.
Yeah. But what I see radio stations do is they have 3 or 4 topics going. Now it's not going to be topic A, B, but it could be topic 3. Call up and let people discuss. Hey, was that the best tennis match? What was your experience like? Especially with all the fans cheering on Roger and then Novak. For those that don't know, Novak Djokovic, in 7 years, a man hasn't faced a match point and then come back to win the match at Wimbledon. And he did. He faced 2 of them. And in the world of tennis with 100-mile-an-hour serves, it's fascinating that he actually came back and won the match. And there's debates regarding the rules of tennis and stuff like that. There's a lot of interesting stuff. It all depends on who the host is spewing out the content. And I think I can make it interesting.
I think what you end up doing, especially from a sports talk perspective, you find a topic and then there's 2 ways you can go about it, right? So one is something that we do all the time, and it's spin it local. You find a national topic and somehow you make it relevant to your local sports team or to your local area. So that's one thing. Or you take it and you make it everyman, right? So you have your tennis match, right? According to you, one of the greatest tennis matches you've ever witnessed. What is the best sports event that you've ever witnessed? I mean, that's kind of what you end up doing, and you try to formulate a conversation.
Very good topic.
Way.
That'd be awesome. See, I'd love to hear that. And I think other people do other stuff too, talking about their personal habits and their vacations and stuff like that. There's lots to talk about. But in terms of the world of sports, people always say this is the slow time. Yes, in terms of competitive stuff, but I found that when you read up on the drafts, when you read up on the roster moves, when you can talk about, okay, who's done what in the NBA, who's done what in the NFL, it's a great time to talk about, especially now too, where we're approaching expectations for Michigan and Michigan State. We're going to talk about that. So I just think that, yes, talking about things extensively could be very, very difficult in terms of, trying to find super interesting stuff. But I just think that there's a lot of interesting things going on in the world of sports, and especially with the nonsense that people do and other type stuff with movies and social media. Look, Bagel Guy. We could have made a 3-hour show on Bagel Guy because that was the weirdest shit I have ever seen. And now the guy's famous and he's embracing it. I've like, what the hell? He goes on a national serious show with a media shirt on and he's got a manager. And I'm like, in 24 hours, you got yourself a manager, you got yourself engagements, you got yourself money coming out of this. This guy was laughed at, was perceived to be laughed at because he's being short. He turns around and flips it and becomes a celebrity.
I think the best part of that video was that dude getting flexed by
that was the best.
Guy. That was awesome.
He took advantage of it. He's like, this is 2019. And I said, this is so 2019 where a guy is so angry at women because he can't get laid. And he comes out and he's talking crap and he's angry and he's not doubling down. He's not embarrassed.
Vito doesn't have this problem.
Tune in to Two Bad Hombres every Saturday. We talked about it. And he said, look, I embrace it. Why would I be angry? Because he's happy.
Yeah.
The opposite of being angry is happy. You know, so he has no problems with this, and he just said
Vito's a good-looking dude,
and he believed kind of that it was orchestrated.
You know, he's got a third leg, right?
I don't know. I don't think he's using it. But I just think, like I said, it's a weird time now where people are using social media for their advantage, and it was fascinating. 25 million views in 24 hours.
That's crazy
on a guy, and it's crazy times. But in the world of sports, man, to spin it back local, Golden Tate gave us some content. It's very fascinating. What was your thoughts regarding Golden Tate coming out and being interviewed and talking and saying, you know what? Matthew Stafford's probably the best quarterback that I've ever faced. And if he was on a different squad, he probably would have playoff wins where he goes, other quarterbacks they observe have talent, but I think Stafford is getting screwed by the fact that he's with the Lions. Now, you can say that, but you can infer that, you know what? If Stafford was somewhere else, potentially he could have had more success. And now people are kind of going, okay, so that means, and they're inferring and taking what he said and saying, okay, Golden Tate thinks that Stafford's better than Russell Wilson. Well, if you recall, there are some factors there that Golden Tate felt a little bit disrespected by Seattle and things like that. And there was some situations where Golden Tate and Russell Wilson have an outside, off-the-field issue regarding women and stuff like that. If you recall, there are some rumors that maybe Golden Tate hooked up with Russell Wilson's ex, and there are some bro code issues going on there. So he leaves, and he probably doesn't have the best relationship with Russell Wilson. Whereas in Detroit, he gets traded, and he can focus in on the organization. And he says, I think took a passive-aggressive dig at the organization by saying, I think if Stafford was not with the Lions, he'd be more successful. My opinion is that just Golden Tate is a loyal guy, developed a friendship with his boy, and he wants to come out and shut down, and because that's what he's asked about. He's like, okay, tell me about your experience with Seattle and Detroit. You know, you didn't really have too much success with the Lions. What was that like? Now you've been traded. Now you got the bigger contract. These are the things that he's asked about and talks about. And I do believe that there is a concerted effort by former teammates of Stafford to make him look better than he is. And I respect that. That's what a good teammate is you go out there and you talk nicely about a guy, especially when you're not even on the same team anymore. What's the benefit of trashing him? You know, so I respect Golden Tate. I just completely disagree. Russell Wilson, by and large, hands down, when you put everything against each other, is better than Matthew Stafford. But it's just a scenario where I say it's nice, but I don't think it's that important because everyone knows when you have a ring, it's pretty much established you're a made guy. And he had an opportunity without one boneheaded call from the coach to have 2 rings back to back. So don't tell me that Stafford's better than Russell Wilson. And this is a big year for Matthew Stafford. But again, one of the biggest talking points in any conversation regarding Stafford is, show me something. Where's the success? Great, you got all this talent, but what does it amount to? Doesn't mean anything. I don't care if you can throw the ball 100 yards and you can hit a guy in stride. When it's in the fourth quarter, you're down by 7 and we need you to make a key play and it doesn't happen consistently enough, hey, I'm upset about it and I'm willing to say this is the biggest year for Stafford and I'm willing to say if he doesn't make it at least a playoff win or 2, I'm ready to move on.
I think what Golden Tate is saying, there's some truth to it because he is the best quarterback he's ever played with, right? At the time, remember, Russell Wilson was a rookie, and then he was in his sophomore season when he played with when Russell Wilson and Golden Tate played together in Seattle. They kept the leash on Russell Wilson, mind you. Golden Tate, when he was in Seattle, the most targets he received was 99, and that was the year right before he became a free agent and came to Detroit. All right, his first season in Detroit, he had 99 receptions. So just as much as he was targeted the previous year, he was catching that many balls. So right there, his total perspective is skewed.
He loves the quarterback that got him the ball.
Exactly. And then if you look at what Russell Wilson has done essentially after Golden Tate has left, he has blossomed and grown into that quarterback that you're talking about, that exceptional quarterback, that quarterback who's better than Matt Stafford. And I think we all agree Russell Wilson's a better quarterback than Matt Stafford. You just look at the stats. I mean, yeah, he hasn't had a 5,000-yard season, but he's won more and he's done a little bit more. So I think we all agree Russell Wilson, hands down, by and large, is a better quarterback. But for Golden Tate, the best quarterback he's ever played with is Matt Stafford. And I think there's more truth to what he says when he says Matt Stafford would be viewed differently if he played on a different team, and would be viewed different and would have more playoff wins if he wasn't here in Detroit. I think that's completely accurate. You know, you take Matt Stafford and insert him on some other team, and I guarantee you he has at least one playoff win. You know, it's by Detroit's own ineptitude that Matt Stafford has 0 playoff wins. 0. I don't put Detroit not having a playoff win under Matt Stafford's reign purely on Matt Stafford. Yeah, Matt Stafford needs to sometimes play better, but for the most part, this team hasn't been very good, or this coaching staff has been very questionable. You know, you take Matt Stafford and put him on, let's say, an Atlanta Falcons team, probably going to win a playoff game, probably going to get you close to a Super Bowl, maybe wins one. You know, you take Matt Stafford and you put him on that Denver Broncos team with Peyton Manning, where Peyton Manning was absolutely trash, just garbage. That team's winning that Super Bowl. Like, I don't necessarily care how you cut it. You know, I mean, I know Seattle won that Super Bowl, but I think Matt Stafford wins that Super Bowl for Denver. Peyton Manning was absolute garbage. So all that being said, I think there's a lot of truth in what Golden Tate is speaking about. I think it becomes kind of this faux excitement and this faux shock and outrage. Like, oh my God, I can't believe Golden Tate is saying this. Does he not realize what Russell Wilson has become? Russell Wilson is a great quarterback. Cool. But Russell Wilson was in his sophomore year when Golden Tate was playing with him and really didn't get him the ball. Golden Tate came to Detroit and became an immediate fixture, had this awesome connection with Matt Stafford, and was putting up Pro Bowl numbers and was playing incredible football.
Now, I said this on previous podcasts earlier this week. Wouldn't you have different and much different and higher expectations if Russell Wilson was the quarterback of this team in 2019? Wouldn't you expect them to get to the playoffs and expect them to have a little bit more success with this defense, with this running game? I would just say, you know what? If Russell Wilson was the quarterback of the Detroit Lions in 2019, you could even talk about division. You could even talk about defeating the Bears, defeating the Packers, and having success in the playoffs. That's what Russell Wilson can bring you because he has the ability to extend plays. He has the ability to make plays that some other quarterbacks don't. And there are times where he's played on teams where the talent wasn't as good and he's made some plays. And so he just has that it factor, whether you say he's just got that knack to know where to get, extend plays, to extend drives, whether he's just so competitive because he came from Wisconsin and he wasn't drafted that high.
Who's the best receiver Russell Wilson has played with?
Exactly.
Doug Baldwin.
But others that argue it will say...
and Doug Baldwin's a good receiver, right? Doug Baldwin's not a great wide receiver.
But others will argue that Legion of Boom, the defense, carried the team, and he had also Marshawn Lynch.
Stretches, yes.
So they both have had talent. Stafford had Calvin Johnson. He's had running backs that could do some things, but not to the level as other organizations. But at the same time, I just believe that if you don't want to knock Stafford, fine. If you want to say, okay, he's good, he's a guy that you want on your team, I just think that others that are cheaper can do the job better. And strictly speaking, bottom line, if Russell Wilson was on the Lions, I can make an expectation that you could compete in the NFC this year.
Yeah, and I think what you're saying is accurate. And it feels a little bit dirty to say that. It feels almost like you're totally discrediting Matt Stafford, and I don't think you are, or at least I don't think you mean to. I think we both agree. Matt Stafford's a pretty good quarterback. He's just more middle of the pack, where Russell Wilson is that upper echelon.
Factor, whatever that may be, just that competitive nature where some people rise to the occasion when the lights are the brightest and others fall by the wayside, and that's just the way it is.
Would you say Matt Stafford's a top 15 quarterback?
Yeah.
Okay, I think that's accurate. I think almost everybody who's listening to this would agree. There's a couple Stafford haters out there who are like, no, and there's a couple Stafford lovers out there who are like, no, he's top 5. You're an idiot, just so you know. And the Matt Stafford haters, you're an idiot too, because he's a top 15 quarterback, right? He's somewhere in the middle there. Russell Wilson, on the other hand, I think we both can agree, probably a top 7 quarterback, potential to maybe be in that top 5, possibly that top 3. And it's just because their games are a little bit different. And it seems like when it comes down to it, Russell Wilson's able to win that big game. Matt Stafford's never been able to win that big game. And that's kind of what separates both of these guys. You know, as far as Golden Tate's concerned, sure, everything you're saying makes absolute sense. Perfect sense. Because when you look at the stats and you look at who you played with and when you played with them, I get it.
Okay, now the other side of the coin is if you took Matthew Stafford out of the Lions organization and you put him on, let's say, the Giants, or you put him on the Packers, or you put him on, aforementioned, the Seattle Seahawks, does he make them better? See, I don't see that. I see similar situations to other quarterbacks that struggle at times. You know, if he goes to Arizona, does he make them significantly better? If he goes to Jacksonville, if he was the backup per se when Carson Wentz went down, does he take them to the Super Bowl? I don't believe that. I don't believe that he would have had the ability like Nick Foles to, you know, rally an entire organization together and go on a 6-game run and play that well throughout the extended playoffs and to make key plays versus big-time opponents. I don't see that at all. So for Golden Tate to say that, I think also is a fallacy. I think that Matthew Stafford would maybe probably have better numbers, would probably have more wins, but at the same time, do I envision him being a championship elite caliber quarterback on another organization? I don't see it, in my opinion.
Let me ask you this. As you were talking, I was just trying to run through teams in my head, just different franchises and who their quarterbacks are and who's on their roster. If you were to take Matt Stafford and plug him into, I don't know, we'll say the 2016, 2017 Cincinnati Bengals, I think he makes them better. I think instantly he makes them better. They have a really good wide receiving core that year. They've got decent running backs. I think, and they have, if I remember correctly, they had a pretty good defense. I think instantly he's an upgrade over Andy Dalton, who by Madden ratings is ranked higher than Matt Stafford. Makes no sense to me, but I think he makes that team better. I think he makes that team a legitimate playoff contender, and I think they possibly maybe win a playoff game. But all that being said, I mean, I think you could take Matt Stafford, you could plug him onto the Baltimore Ravens. I think that team gets better with him. I think you can put him on different teams, and he's going to make different teams better. Whether that results in championships, I don't know. Because again, Matt Stafford hasn't won the big game, and that becomes a little bit of an issue. And that's kind of the crux of this argument, I think, for Detroit fans. That's why they're frustrated when they hear Golden Tate come out and say stuff like this, because it's like, what has he won? What has he done? Yeah, he's been here his entire career, but he played with a Hall of Fame wide receiver. You know, I know he hasn't had a great running game, but he had an elite defense one year, and you still haven't been able to win anything. And by anything, I mean a playoff game, much less a division. Cool, you beat Green Bay up a couple times, but it hasn't resulted in anything. You know, you win a division, you can then make the argument like, hey, he's kind of doing some things because you've got the proof's in the pudding. You know, you've got a banner to hang, you've got a division title that you can point to, and you possibly have a bye week in the playoffs, which then set you up perfectly to try to win one more game, so you can get into the conversation to play for a Super Bowl. He just hasn't got this team there. And I don't think it's all his fault. I really don't.
So when you see the makeup of what's going on now with the offense, with the increased emphasis on the running game, with Darrell Bevell coming in, obviously from Seattle, so he has this notion of how to maybe run an offense in a way that could, be suited to fit Matthew Stafford's needs. Now with a tight end, hopefully that you count on to catch the ball and run block, and with, like I said, a patchwork offensive line that's being developed, that's younger and things like that. Do you see Matthew Stafford getting better, or do you say, you know what, they've just handcuffed him to the point where run the ball, play good defense, win 17-14, go home, and let's not emphasize so much the quarterback? Because that's what I think is the case, where they want to make Matthew Stafford so good, and they want to make him look so safe and They want the offense to play so safe and conservative. They don't want to turn the ball over. They don't want to throw the ball exceptionally a large amount of time deep. And I think when you've seen the numbers and others have looked at it, he checks down the ball a lot. And I'm like, yeah, no shit. We've been talking about it for the last 3 years that this offense is boring. I take a nap all the time, but it's been efficient. They've scored points. But at the same time, I just see an offense now where it's going to be hammer the ball, run, check down, and it's just going to be like, oh my God, can we just have some excitement? Can we get 20, 25 points a game? I'm fascinated to see this year. The biggest questions for the teams that I support, Michigan State and the Lions, are going to be, how many damn points are you going to score? And for Matthew Stafford, I just feel like they're paying him a lot of money to hand the ball off. That's what everyone's thinking is like, okay, you know what? They've assessed what he's got. They know his skills. I don't see a plethora of time where the organization is going to count on Matthew Stafford to do some things, especially with how they're building the team.
This is what I'll say. With Darrell Bevell coming in, I think this offense is going to look completely different, and I think it's going to put Matt Stafford in a really solid spot.
To look good.
And this is going off of things from last year that you kind of realize. So last year, Matt Stafford was, give me one second, we do some quick math for you real quick. So last year, Matt Stafford was essentially in the top 10 for play action pass. Okay. Darrell Bevell coming in is going to set up play action pass, and he's going to run the ball a lot. Those are the calling cards of his offense. So Matt Stafford with a banged up offensive line last year, playing a couple games with a broken back, was in the top 10 of the NFL, up there with guys like Drew Brees, Phillip Rivers, Russell Wilson, up there with those guys in play action pass rating. The way this offense is going to be built, it's going to play to Matt Stafford's strengths. So I think he's going to be better next season. And from a fantasy perspective, right? I know we don't do a lot of fantasy talk on this show. If you're looking to draft a quarterback, I think Matt Stafford's a solid pickup for you. I think you're going to be pleasantly surprised. I think you're going to be impressed. And again, it's strictly based on what he's able to accomplish with his play action passing and the way this offense is going to be developed and curtailed to emphasize what he does well. Now, all that being said, do I think they take the reins off him? No, not at all. I think the way this team wants to play is they want to play ball control, they want to limit mistakes, and they want to force turnovers. And all of that being said, how do you do that? You keep the reins on Matt Stafford, but you put him in a spot to make smart decisions and smart plays, and you put him in a spot to really excel at what he does best. And what he does best is throwing out of that play action pass.
So obviously when we survey the landscape in the media early at this point in time in July, people are starting to compare, okay, what's going on with the NFL divisions? Let's rank, in terms of teams and things like that. Let's rank the coaches. Let's rank the divisions across all sports. People are looking at, obviously, divisional contests in baseball, and they're looking at changes from the draft and things like that. Obviously, where the free agents move in the NBA, NFL, NHL. It's all the good times. That's what we're talking about. But obviously, you and I both saw that an NFL writer kind of started to rank the coaches, and whenever people start to compare and start rating, the organizations and things like that, obviously, people got butthurt regarding the players' EA Madden ratings, and they're like, what? I'm a 70, I'm a 60? Everyone got butthurt that they rated Matthew Stafford a 79, and I'm like, hell yeah, it's a perfect rating. He's a C-plus quarterback until he shows you something different. It's no problem. But 79.
Shouldn't he be rated higher than Andy Dalton? You think Andy Dalton's a better quarterback?
Hey,
you can't tell me that. You don't believe that. I know you don't believe that.
So obviously then I would say Stafford's rating is appropriate and Dalton's rating is too high.
Correct.
That's obviously what I would say. And I think the rating was perfect. But a lot of the Lions took to social media and were like, oh my God. Well, in terms of NFL writers, one of the writers ranked Matt Patricia in the low 20s. And I'm like, dang, obviously Bill Belichick number one, but how did you view that?
Even lower than that, because there are new head coaches that weren't even included on this list. So I think the list goes from 1 to, I think, 26 or 27.
Yep.
And he's ranked, I think, 24th.
And
so he is like the bottom of the bottom tier quarterback or head coaches.
When you read it, he does say there's a lot of unknowns, but there was a lot of concern regarding player buy-in. And that's one of the things that I think is the biggest indictment on Matt Patricia is how do you not come in right away and build some rapport with your players? I mean, you've been a coach, you've been a defensive coordinator for years. How do you not get some players to buy in? I think one of the things that was a big mistake was obviously showing up late to meetings, maybe coming in with a level of ego that was maybe too high. How do you not come in right away? And at least one of the things that's guaranteed that you got is being able to get along with the players. So that's what kind of the crux of his explanation was. There's a lot of unknowns that the second year is going to be imperative, but it's tough, across the league. And I think it's fair. I don't begrudge a writer for saying that. For Michigan, for the Detroit Lions, for a lot of the local teams, it's about showing it. You can't have expectations. You can't have any respect or rapport. If you're a Lions player, how are you going to expect an 80 ranking? If you're Snacks, you're getting that largely based on your reputation before the Lions. So I would say...
Oh, I don't know about that.
I mean, he had a good year.
He had a great year for Detroit.
But is he really a 95 NFL athlete?
I think he, as far as run blocking goes, he is elite. He is elite at stopping the run. I think that's 100% accurate. The last 3 years, Snacks has been, if not the guy, he is number 2 at stopping the run. And you've seen it when he was brought over to Detroit, taking a defense that overall was ranked, I think, 22nd when he stepped in and catapulted them to the top 10.
Okay, so what do you think about the ranking for Matt Patricia? Fair? Or do you say, you know what, maybe he's not 24, but maybe he's like 19, 18. He's kind of in the middle of the pack.
Here's the thing. I think it's fair to a degree, but I don't think he is as low as he has been rated. I don't think a guy like Doug Marrone is better than Matt Patricia, and I don't think a guy like John Gruden is better than Matt Patricia. I don't even think Bill O'Brien, who has gotten the team to the playoffs, is better than Matt Patricia. I think Matt Patricia showed you some things as that season wore on last year. I think he came in. I think he alienated this locker room. He tried to be Bill Belichick. Bill Belichick has been on record of saying, you will hate me 364 days out of the year, but that one day you love me, you will hoist a Super Bowl trophy. You'll hoist a Lombardi trophy. And I think that's what Matt Patricia came in here and tried to do. And it just didn't work. That locker room revolted against him. He alienated everybody. And then as the season wore on, I think the guys started to kind of buy into what he was selling and what he was teaching and what he was trying to coach. And when that happened, I think you've seen this team start to evolve a little bit. I think this team got better as the season wore on. Even though they were dealing with injuries, I think they got better as the season wore on. And you can look at that defensive rating. Like I said, I think it went from 22nd to 10 when Snacks came in. You look at what happened with the cornerback play. Darius Slay had an absolutely atrocious, abysmal year. But if you dig a little bit deeper, he was horrible in the beginning of the year. His stats got better as the season went on. And again, I think that's buying into the scheme, figuring out what your coach wants from you. As far as that offense goes, that offense wasn't very good. And I think some of that is Matt Patricia's fault. I think some of that is Jim Bob Cooter's fault. Jim Bob Cooter, when he finally figured out how to use his running back, they started to win games. And then Kerryon Johnson got hurt. And the one piece that you used kind of as your game changer was now taken away from you. So now you had to lean on Matt Stafford, and you're leaning on Matt Stafford with a banged-up offensive line that wasn't very good last year. It gets, it sounds almost like I'm making excuses for Matt Patricia. I think Matt Patricia at this point is a bottom-tier head coach, and that's based purely on what his record says he is. I think there's some potential there, though, and I think if he does and I think he's shown you he's done a better job this offseason, especially with the way he's handled himself in the media. I mean, when he came in last year, it was weird. Would you not admit that it was a little bit polarizing and just strange? I think is the best way I could kind of reference what happened with Matt Patricia in the media. He came in, it was very chummy to start, and then the allegations and the reports about a possible rape with Matt Patricia surfaced, and then all of a sudden things shut down. And the way he treated the media was almost disrespectful. And we talked about it a lot. We talked about it ad nauseum last year about how he was so disrespectful to the media. I mean, so much so that he was calling out Michael Rothstein about the way he was sitting. I mean, what are you doing? You don't do stuff like that. It doesn't matter. Who the hell cares how he's sitting? He could be standing on his head. Who the hell cares? He's doing his job. You do your job. He asks you a question. You answer that question. That's it. Then you go coach your guys. That's your job. And I think he learned as that season wore on. And I think this year, especially this year through OTAs, through some of his brief interactions with the media, I think you see a different Matt Patricia. And I think that's going to carry over into the season. And I think that makes him a better coach. I think that makes them a better team.
I think at the same time he came in believing that the media would treat him with more respect. Like, hey, I'm a defensive coordinator from the New England Patriots. And then quickly you realize, oh, this is a franchise that has no success and that it's going to take an overwhelming amount of work to move things forward.
But don't you agree, though, that they did that to start?
But guess what? A 6-10 season will humble you real quick. And now you see a different side of them. Like, oh, okay, I understand I got to get players in here that kind of fit my scheme and get guys that will kind of uplift me. That's why you see kind of a lot of the free agents being brought in are guys from New England or have been in that system so that they can kind of help with that locker room situation.
Don't you think that the rape allegations, though, kind of were the turning point for his interaction with the media and the kind of the way he carried himself in regards to the media? I mean, once the Detroit News published that article about the rape allegations and what took place years ago, his demeanor changed. It wasn't just his demeanor. I think it was the coaching staff's demeanor, and I think it was even some of the guys in the front office, because it really seemed like they were riding this high. Like, Bob Quinn got his guy. This is going to be awesome. And there was a lot of promise. There was a lot of almost like this air of confidence. Like, cool, we got our guy. We're going to go do some things. And then that happened. And then all of a sudden, it seemed like it got really, really different. It seemed like it got really, really testy. And it seemed like it was more shut this down and protect the house is what it really felt like. And I think that carried its way through all 17 weeks of the NFL season. And I think it didn't really change until maybe right around the draft. And I think that was some of Bob Quinn. I think Bob Quinn maybe pulled Matt Patricia aside, or maybe even Martha pulled Matt Patricia aside and said, hey, your beard's cute. It was your calling card in New England. This isn't New England. You're a head coach now. Your pencil in your ear's cute. That's fine. You can keep that. That's your little calling card too. But you need to clean it up a little bit. You need to start carrying yourself like you're an actual member of this front office.
What's one big improvement he can make in 2019? The biggest improvement Patricia can make?
I think finding a way to get the most out of this offense, whether it's with the offensive coordinator and them game planning, or trying to get his guys to I don't know, communicate or open up to where they're more receptive of what Bevel is preaching. Somehow you got to get this offense going. I think you see it with the defense. The defense looks really good. And I think by bringing in the key pieces that they brought in this offseason, I think it's going to be even better. You know, it was top 10 last year. I think it'll be somewhere within the top 10. Maybe top 8, maybe top 5. I think it's going to be better this year. Somehow you need that offense to match. You need that offense to catapult itself up and at least be top 15, preferably top 12, and put some points on the board. You know, utilize your running back, utilize Matt Stafford, utilize your wide receivers downfield. Find some way to get these guys the ball and put points up on the board. Stop settling for field goals. Start putting up crooked numbers and not even so much run up the score, but be able to win a game with your offense, not lean on your defense. I think that's the biggest improvement he can make. I think if he does that, I think the way we talk about this season coming up is totally different. You can't tell me that if this team has a top 12 offense and a top 10 defense, that we should not be talking about possibly winning a division or winning a playoff game. Do you agree?
100%. I just think that across the board with the relationships that are taking place, obviously, what I want to see? I want to see a little bit more aggression in that defense. I want to see more blitzes. I want to see more sacks. I want to see more destruction because, bend don't break is fine, but at the same time, it allows, your defense to wear down. It allows Matthew Stafford not to be on the field. So I want, for me, the biggest single improvement I want to see is get off the field more on third downs. How many times last year was it 3rd and 14, 3rd and 9, 3rd and 10, where you're like, okay, good, we got a great spot here, and boom, they lay back, and you're like, what the hell? Why are you laying back? Why is Darius Slay 4 yards back behind these guys? Why can't they get off the field? If you want Matthew Stafford to shine, you got to get his ass on the field. Limiting extended drives and actually being aggressive and getting off the field on third down. If they can do that, if Matt Patricia's defense can do that, I think you'll have a lot more opportunity to score by just naturally getting the ball more, especially with the league tailoring it so that the offense has the advantage over the defense. Obviously, that would indicate get the ball to your offense. That's my stance on it. Do I think it's going to happen? Fuck no. I think hell no. I think that we're going to see more of the same, but I do think you're going to see steady improvement. 8-8 is where I'm at wholeheartedly. I think it's going to be better. 9-7 probably is the peak, and then hopefully you're kind of in the mix there to win the division and get to the postseason. As long as we see improvement, Obviously, you're not going to do it at the clip where you're going to win the division, but if you can just make steady improvements, tighten up a little bit where not so many big plays are flagged and things like that, or potentially speaking, hey, if the referees can respect the Lions and earn a little bit of credibility where every time we make a big play, we don't see that stupid yellow flag. Hey, if you can change the culture a little bit and change the narrative where you get a little bit more respect for the organization, that would be goal B for me. Goal A, improve the defense, get off the field on third down. Goal B, maybe start the process of changing the narrative where Stafford's not rated to 79, where you're not rated in the lower tier, where the organization's not viewed as bottom feeders. That would be great.
Let me ask you this real quick before we get out of this topic. How many of the draft picks have to be productive this season? Detroit had a lot of draft picks in the NFL draft, and I think the one questionable one was Jelani Tavai, the linebacker out of Hawaii. That one had everybody scratching their head in the second round. They went tight end first round, and I don't think either one of us were very pro that, but we understood the thought process of it. How many of these draft picks have to hit and have to hit almost immediately for this team to be successful and for you to be like, okay, it seems like they know what they're doing?
4 of them?
4?
Probably, yeah. The lower round picks, obviously lower expectations, but obviously, yeah, Jelani Tavai have to make an immediate impact. Mm-hmm. You just got to see a little bit.
Is he the one who's the linchpin here?
Of course, that's the one everyone's going to be looking at. Obviously, at the same time, too, to see what Hockenson does. Can he actually block? I don't think people are going to be realistically expecting him to make a lot of catches because of the fact that most tight ends don't. They're going to want to see holes opened up. They want to see increased numbers for the running game. That's what they're going to want to see. So we'll see what happens. But, yeah, right now, change the culture, improve the defense, maybe win some games would be unbelievable for the Detroit Lions.
For me, guys like Hockenson, Tavai, I think Austin Bryant's going to be a rotational piece. He's your D end out of Clemson. I think he'll be a rotational piece. I could see Oruwariye out of Penn State, the cornerback. I could see him being plugged in and being a rotational cornerback. I could definitely see that. I think Will Harris has to perform as well. So all that being said, what is that? 1, 2, 3. So five guys have to become at least rotational pieces in this offense and defense. And maybe that seems like a lot, but look, Oruwariye shouldn't have been there in round 5. Just shouldn't have been there. The Austin Bryant pick, I love that pick. I thought that was a great pick. I really did. The Will Harris pick, I don't know why. I don't understand that one. And the Tavai one, I don't understand. So those two right there, those guys have to make an impact. Hockenson has to make an impact because those first 3 picks, I didn't like any of them. I really didn't. But after that, rounds 4 and rounds 5, I love those picks. Those guys have to be rotational pieces. So the first 5 guys have to make some type of an impact this season.
Stay with us, second half of the podcast. I know it's time. Adam's excited to talk about Michigan football. He's reading all the hype. He's reading all the expectations from the likes of Phil Steele, national media, local media. So I want to get a sense of where Adam is at today in July regarding Michigan, because for those that say Michigan has a strong chance to go undefeated, win the Big Ten, get to Indy, I think there's a fair conversation to have regarding, well, pump the brakes. There are going to be some more challenges than maybe some are willing to admit. We'll talk all about that in the second half of the podcast. Stay with us. Adam, we wouldn't be able to keep the lights on and the mics hot here in Sterling Heights if it wasn't for the support of great sponsors. And this podcast, the Doc and Jock podcast, is sponsored by the Motor City Pawnbrokers and by Flick, the chat application. The Motor City Pawnbrokers are the one-stop pawn shop when you're in need of short-term cash or are looking for quality, brand-name new, and pre-owned merchandise. With locations in Detroit, Ferndale, Roseville, and Warren, their mission is to deliver exceptional value. For all information and for the great deals associated with the Motor City Pawnbrokers, today go visit MotorCityPawnbrokers.com. That's MotorCityPawnbrokers.com. Now, if you've agreed or disagreed with anything that we've said in regards to Stafford, Golden Tate, the Detroit Lions, feel free, hop on over to Flick and engage in conversation. If you just want to listen to our podcast, Flick is also a great place where you can go and find the Detroit Sports Podcast, all the shows. How do you get to Flick, you ask? Well, all you got to do is find us on our social media platform at Detroit Podcast. Find the invite link, and you're in just that quickly. Literally takes seconds, and it's a large group chat application where we talk about Detroit sports, we talk gambling, we talk about professional wrestling. Hell, if you were a fan of the World Series of Poker, I was up all night watching, the big bluffs, the major donkey moves. If you want to create a forum, if you've got a podcast and you want to share topics, get on to Flick. It's super easy, very fun, and you can engage and build a following that way. And I enjoy working with the crew over there at Flick because they're innovative. They want to make it so fun for podcasters to grow their audience, to keep the conversation going, and that's what we like about working with Flick. So find the invite link, get on to Flick, and join the conversation. All right, cuz mid-July, getting ever so close, baby. Training camp for the Detroit Lions, and it's about time for practices and to evaluate what's going on over there with Jim Harbaugh and Michigan. A lot of talk has been about Juwan Howard. Obviously, when Beeline leaves, you have a new coach. People are looking at what's going on. But now, when it's fall, you know what that means. It's time to turn your attention to the marquee program in the state, one of the clubs that probably has a chance for success. And we can't discount, to start this discussion, the fact that Harbaugh has done okay. Multiple 10-win seasons, has taken a lot of guys and moved them to the NFL. But at the same time, Jim Harbaugh, that's not his expectation, is to get 10 wins. If you're a Michigan fan and you're happy with what you've seen, I'm sorry, then you're a guy that doesn't appreciate winning and doesn't really fight for the top. A guy like Jim Harbaugh is not brought here to win 10 games, okay? He's brought to Michigan to win national titles, to bring back the elite status of Michigan, not to bring them back to 10 wins. Really, that's an indictment on the state of football at Michigan, that your program was not there already because you tout yourself as one of the elite Midwest programs.
Leaders and best, baby.
No, that's not the case. So now this fifth season is super important because a lot of the fans are off the bandwagon. They're like, show me. Especially, obviously, in regards to Michigan State, I don't think, Michigan fan really cares, in terms of where Michigan State's at. They still believe and puff their chest out, look, we're better than them, no matter what the record indicates. But when you highlight the losses and the extreme losses to Ohio State, it's infuriating. That gets everyone's attention. And so this season, I think a lot of fans, a lot of Michigan fans, even those that puff their chest out and are pro Michigan all the time, are saying, okay, we got destroyed by Ohio State last season. We haven't made our mark nationally. We haven't even been to Indy yet. And we've looked across and we've seen in East Lansing, that's happened. They've met goals. They've had bigger moments. They've had some successes at a little bit higher clip than Michigan. So where are you at? Because of the fact that I believe the true expectation for Jim Harbaugh this year is at least to get to Indy, win the Big Ten, defeat Michigan State, defeat Ohio State, defeat Notre Dame, defeat Army, win a lot of your games and get to Indy and at least put yourself in position to make the national playoff. Will it happen? I don't think so. For me, I look at it and I say, two of the reasons that you're not going to go to Indy and win the Big Ten is, one, you're overhauling your offense. It doesn't click that quickly. Okay, for those that think, okay, we got a new offensive coordinator, we lost our running back, we lost a lot of key pieces, and some guys have left and things like that, and we're just going to overhaul everything, and everything's going to be smooth. I think you're being a little bit naive as to how things work, because people will have the ability to research what Alabama did and what Josh Gaddis did. It's been, look at what Dabo Swinney did. He was able at times to do some things to stop that Alabama offense. So it's not like this offense that he's bringing in is like revolutionary that nobody's ever seen before. So pump the brakes on that. And two, I'll say this. When you lose the quality of defenders that you lost to the draft, you don't lose your starting linebacker and key impactful defenders. Multitude, over 6 to 7 left and have been drafted and have gone on and graduated. You don't just lose that much on defense and then come back and just take over and just continue to roll along, especially with what, unfortunately, Don Brown's defense, for those that don't want to admit it, got exposed. I think that you and I can scheme some screens over the middle that can go for 30 yards, especially when I said prior to the last game, I think that Florida's going to run a lot of over-the-middle type stuff. And what did they do? They ran a lot of over-the-middle type stuff when they knew it was coming. That's the sickest part, is everybody knew what was happening. They knew it was going to be, a lot of crossing routes over the middle. and they didn't adjust to it, which was really weird in that we talked about it on this podcast. We said, cause I think Florida's going to do that. They saw the last game on film that Ohio State did it and they didn't stop it. So for me, I think there's going to be 9 to 10 wins inherently there in that schedule. The key games, I just don't see it. I don't see them elevating themselves at this time to take their place where they want to be. 9-10 wins. I just think they fall short versus Ohio State and maybe even Michigan State.
Let's talk about those key games. Would you consider Wisconsin a key game?
Now, I've talked to some people, they don't, but it's on the road. It's your Big Ten opener. Mm-hmm. I'm like, what's the reason for the disrespect for Wisconsin? I'm like, Wisconsin plays tough. They're a team and a squad in the Big Ten that gives everybody fits. So I think that's a big game.
I think it's going to be a little bit tough as far as an out goes, but Wisconsin doesn't scare me. I'm not afraid of Wisconsin.
Okay, not Wisconsin. What about Army? When you saw what they did in the second half of last year in their bowl game, they put up points.
I think they're going to be a good team, but again, Army doesn't scare me. Army, if you're a Michigan fan, Army shouldn't scare you. There should be no reason. Your athletes should be better than what Army is able to throw out on the field. You should beat Army. Iowa's usually a tough out, but Iowa has to come to the big house. So I don't really think that's going to be different. It's not like playing in Kinnick. When you play in Kinnick Stadium, it's an extremely difficult place to play. So Iowa doesn't scare me. Now Penn State's a team that you have to go travel to. This is another big Big Ten road game. This could be a difficult game. This could be a tough out. All that being said, I don't believe in their head coach. I think Franklin is a fraud. I don't know what they're going to do as far as their quarterback situation. I don't even know if they know what they're going to do as far as their quarterback situation. So Penn State, no, not really worried about it. That brings us to Notre Dame. And I think this is probably going to be the toughest game on the schedule. The thing about it, Notre Dame has to come to you, okay? And Notre Dame is, I believe, they are the 7th or the 8th game that season. So you've already worked out some of the kinks. You kind of have an idea of what you're doing and where you're going. You've already had a bye week mixed in here, and you're able to kind of get a couple things figured out. I'm not 100% terrified of Notre Dame. I think it's going to be a very good game. I actually do. I think this is going to be a great game. This will probably be one of the games that I go to. This is going to be an awesome game. This right here could be a loss, though. This could be the first L on the season. But you know what? It's not in Big Ten play. So you lose this game. Does it really hurt you? Maybe it hurts you as far as your standings go overall, but it doesn't hurt you in the Big Ten. So cool, you take an L here. We'll just say they take an L here. Your next big game, Michigan State. Michigan State comes to your house.
They might not score 10 points.
That's kind of the thing, right? I mean, what has Michigan State done this offseason? They basically took the Titanic, and they're like, cool, let's move the deck chairs around, and let's keep the entire staff together. Mind you, the whole time, you've got the band just playing as the boat is breaking in half.
But that defense will correct a lot of mistakes, in my opinion.
It's going to cover up a lot of mistakes. I don't think it'll correct them. It will cover up a lot of their mistakes.
I do think that Michigan State has the ability to recover because of the talent that they do have on offense if they can improve the scheme and be willing to open it up. I don't think it was a talent issue.
Well, it
was a scheme issue.
What are you getting with Lewerke? Is he the quarterback he was last year, or is he the quarterback he was 2 years ago?
Health. Hopefully it's the one 2 years ago.
What are you getting? Nobody knows. So as far as Michigan State goes, I'm not concerned right now. I really am not. And then that brings you to Ohio State, your last game of the season, okay?
In Ann Arbor.
It's going to be a tough game. It's always a tough game, but you're going to be at home. And you are going up against a rookie head coach. You are going up against a brand new quarterback to not only that system that Ryan Day's installing, but he is a transfer into that program. I think that says a lot. On top of that, you talked about pieces that Michigan lost. What about the pieces Ohio State lost? Ohio State lost a bunch of guys, and I know that they don't reset and they don't rebuild. They just reload. I get that. I understand that. Michigan does something similar with their defense. They had a super vaunted defense, 2 years ago? And then last year they might have been better than they were 2 years ago. And I'm not going to say that they're going to be better than what they were last year, but I think that defense is going to be very good, which then brings me to their offense. Now, have a offensive coordinator who's brand new. And the one thing that I was screaming about last year was you need to get Jim Harbaugh to get an actual offensive coordinator in here and let Jim Harbaugh worry about the entire team and not so much worrying about calling the offensive plays. I think just having a hierarchy where you have an offensive coordinator who is the one guy in charge, the one guy who is making the calls, I think that simplifies everything that's going on for this offense, which I think then puts it in a prime spot to operate efficiently and effectively. Now, on top of all that, Shea Patterson, I think, will benefit probably the most from Gaddis coming in. Okay, I think he is going
speed and space.
He is going to emphasize.
Sure.
He is going to emphasize what Shea Patterson does best. He's going to put the ball in his hands, and he's going to allow him to make decisions. And you've seen it in spurts, and you've seen it at times last year where Patterson was operating extremely comfortably. It was basically hike the ball, 1-2, drop step, read, and then react. And if the play was there, cool. If the play wasn't there, he was gone. And it's not like he's not a mobile guy. It's not like he doesn't have wheels. You know, he can break a play loose. Also, you lose your running back, right? Chris Evans isn't here this year, okay? He's not here. Cron Higdon went to the league. So your running back's a giant question mark. That's cool. You know why? They're not going to lean as heavily on the run game. This offense is going to be basically balanced out with your wide receivers. And where are your most dominant offensive athletes at? They all line up out wide. It's all your wide receivers. So it's getting the balls to the athletes, which I think makes this offense that much better. Instead of just grounding and pounding the ball look, Cron Higdon was very good. I don't think he was your best athlete, but you put the ball in his hand 20 times a game last year. Why? He's not your best athlete. I think by spreading the ball around and getting it to your wide receivers, please let Tariq Black be healthy. Please let Tariq Black be healthy. And Donovan Peoples-Jones, please take a step forward. Nico Collins, please do something great. You get the ball to these guys. These are game breakers. These are guys who can stretch the field and really open up a lot. And you know what? If it's not there, we're talking about a stretched out field. You know what that means? That means there are holes underneath. That means there are holes near that offensive line. That means Shea Patterson can either then create or he can take off. And I think that's going to help this offense out a ton. That's why I am confident that Michigan will not only win their division and take the Big Ten East. I think they beat Ohio State, and I think they're playing for the Big Ten championship with the possibility to go on and play in the playoff. And with the way that the Big Ten has been mistreated by the committee, I'm using mistreated in quotation marks here, mistreated by the committee the last couple of years, I think they automatically get a bid if they win the Big Ten championship. But you have to win the Big Ten championship.
Oh, see, I think differently. I think for Michigan, the end game is going to be Boulevard of Broken Dreams. Sorry, guys. I'm a Spartan here. You may call me biased. I just think you guys are going to be crying.
Who's beating them?
Ohio State, Michigan State, potentially Army, potentially Wisconsin.
Okay, hold on. Let's go back to Michigan State real quick. Ohio State, I get, right? Because you've had zero luck with Ohio State.
Yep.
Explain why Michigan State rolls into the big house and beats Michigan.
Exactly. Here's what I'm going to tell you. Defense wins championships.
Yes.
Okay, and a new offense has to go in there and try and execute against a defense that's already been established with Mark D'Antonio, who, again, remember, what do we say about D'Antonio? And I'm so glad you asked me this because I had it ready, locked in my chamber.
It's like we've been doing this podcast for like 6 years, right?
Well, Mark D'Antonio, what does he do? He holds those things. You know, today he's sitting in a meeting and he's going, you know what, guys, look, ahead of weight training, he's probably got a 400-inch plasma screen, and what has he got? He's got Michigan Wolverines on the S there, stomping it, kicking it. Okay, day in, day out, he's got them riled up. Okay, what Michigan did in East Lansing last year was totally disrespectful and out of line.
It's totally well deserved.
So what did they do?
Your coach is a smarmy prick. Let's not even pretend.
He is.
Come on. I like D'Antonio, and I have a ton of respect for him. But that guy's a douchebag. He's just as big of a douchebag as Harbaugh is. And don't feed me this crap. Oh, he's so great. I love Mark. Don't give me this crap. Don't feed me that garbage. Your head coach is a toolbox too, and it's okay. Just embrace it. My head coach is a toolbox as well. He likes to climb trees and sleep over at kickers' houses. And next thing you know, the kicker's not even on the field because of whatever. Do you know what I'm saying?
So the revenge factor is going to take place because of the fact that Mark D'Antonio realizes, okay, Michigan disrespected us. We're not going to let the tide turn anymore. And so the rivalry continues. And I think Michigan State goes into Ann Arbor and potentially ruins Michigan's season. That's what's going to happen, brother. The Boulevard of Broken Dreams.
Okay, so.
And I think what's good for you is you're going to have a lot more miles in between us because when that happens, I can now act more a fool. I can act even.
You don't have to worry about me showing up on your doorstep to kick your ass, huh?
Or here in the studio. So I can be a troll over the phone line and you can just hang up and we can go carry on our business.
Man, you're the worst. All right, who else beats Michigan? So you said Ohio State beats them. MSU beats them. Notre Dame, Penn State?
Penn State's tough, too.
Okay.
Realistically, 3 losses. Give me 3 anywhere in that schedule. Just give me 3 losses.
You're just like 10-3 again. 10-3 again. Always 10-3.
Great podcast. Obviously, sir, I've enjoyed the time that we spent across from each other, but even though you might be in a different state, we're going to have fun with it. Maybe you're not going to be part of as many interviews as possible, but it doesn't make a difference. The key that makes this work is you and I having a good time, talking about whatever the hell we want to talk about, and really bringing a unique perspective to the world of Detroit sports. That's why we've lasted for 311 episodes, many more to come. I look forward to it. You've done a great job. Like I saw earlier online that WDFN celebrated 25 years. You did great work the last few there with Big Drew and Jim, keeping that station and the work that you did there. Really good job.
Trying to keep that station afloat.
Yeah. You know, look.
Maybe next week we can just kind of go into gory details about different things if you want.
I got a tweet for. Are you like? Is it okay to like be passive aggressive now that you're basically out the door?
I mean,
okay, I got a tweet that's locked in my brain. That's be perfect.
You can do what you want.
I mean, WDFN could have some new content with what I'm going to post soon for the demographic that they like.
I mean, let me put it like this: can you be passive aggressive like
not tagging you in it
Saturday?
Oh, Saturday? Okay. I can't. It's timely now.
It's timely now. All right, well, go ahead.
That's okay.
Do whatever you want to do. Go ahead. Do whatever you want to do.
Sounds good. No, we'll do it right now, right after this recording. You'll see it. Look for it. You'll react. You're going to laugh. For the Jock, Adam Strozinski. Follow him on Twitter at AdamRSTROZ. Follow the network at Detroit Podcast. Thank you so much for downloading the latest edition of Doc and Jock. Thank you so much.
This was locker room talk.
Second dick.
Sorry, Detroit. It didn't quite work out.
And all I can say is Detroit Sports Podcast scores.
I hear voices in my head. They counsel me. They understand. They talk to me.